No, sir. I came at them like a wildcat. My fury knew no bounds.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Switch Up. Thanks to our friends over at Techland for the review copy, and to Glenn who's written half of this review including most of the gameplay section. Let us know down in the comments what's your favourite Wild West movie. I think we'll do another giveaway with this one. I'm both impressed and a touch disappointed in the game itself, having now finished the main campaign on the Nintendo Switch. It does loads right and it does a touch wrong, but is it worth buying? Well, let's find out. Call of Juarez Gunslinger sees you taking on the role of Silas Greaves as he sits in a saloon and regales the locals with tales of his younger gunslinging days.
I heard word he was in Kansas with John Wesley Hardin, so that's where I went.
And his association with infamous characters such as Billy the Kid and Jesse James. The story is told using quite an interesting narrative structure, as sometimes Silas will recall his past memories, with the player reliving these via the gameplay, but other times one of the locals will talk of a legend they've heard regarding him, and you'll again play this scenario out, only for Silas to then correct them on their misinformation and the scene to play out completely differently.
It's a good thing that I abandoned that ridiculous plan before I even tried it.
This conversational narrative plays out over the top of the gameplay at times and is told via cutscenes at others, and it reminds me a little of a typical Quentin Tarantino conversation scene in some respects. As I'm sure you have ascertained by now, Call of Juarez Gunslinger is a first-person shooter, and it includes 3 gameplay modes. The first and main ones of these is the story, and this sees the game split into stages, with each being a past event being explained by Silas, as already mentioned. Objectives will flash up on the screen for you to follow, and you can remind yourself of your current objective at any time by pressing the minus button. Doing this will also give you an indication as to which direction you'll need to go next. Missions will see you scrambling over rooftops, making your way through towns and plains, and coming under constant fire from enemies. In fact, the vast majority of those levels will consist of you attempting to stem the flow of enemies looking to take you down, and you'll need to be a sharpshooter to survive.
In fact, I felt a certain...
The shooting's handled with the press of the ZR button, with you aiming the right stick or using motion. The Y button allows you to reload, and you're able to aim down your sights by holding the ZL, which just brings everything into focus a little more clearly. The game does, as mentioned, include those gyro controls for aiming, however it's not handled in a way you might expect. Usually the stick on the left Joy-Con would handle movement, whilst the right Joy-Con itself would be the movement of your camera or gun hand. However, in Call of Juarez Gunslinger, you cannot aim freely with the Joy-Con in this manner, but must first hold down that ZL button. From here, gyro aiming will be in effect, allowing you to refine your shots. Personally, I would have preferred to have free control for aiming at all times if choosing to use gyro, but it does mean that the Pro Controller can be used and the gyro will still work, so I suppose you could argue there are pros and cons for either method. Just as a side note, this is the default setup, so if you don't want to use it, you'll need to turn it off in the options menu. Shooting enemies in quick succession will earn you a combo, thus multiplying your score, as well as assisting you in tackling the leaderboard in arcade mode. It will also boost the amount of XP you earn. These points can then be invested into 3 separate skill trees, which will earn you new ones to help as you play. The Ranger tree is for those who enjoy long-range combat, and the skills here revolve around improving your aim or increasing your ammo capacity. The Gunslinger is centered around medium-range attacks and skills, and will enable you to dual-wield pistols or reload quicker. Finally, the Trapper tree is based on close-range combat, and these skills will improve your resistance to gunfire or improve your proficiency with weapons such as shotguns. I liked how these skill trees allowed you to build a character that suited your play style. I enjoyed the long-range skills personally, as did I, Glenn, with early examples of this tree slowing down enemies for a split second when you press down ZL to aim down the sights. This really worked for me. I also thought it was a good idea to have the ability to dual wield certain weapons behind the skill points, as it means that additional playthroughs have the potential to feel quite different from each other. There is no real cover system. You can't peek out and take a few shots, although you can crouch by pressing A. This means that you'll need to step out from cover in order to take down enemies a lot of the time, taking hits in the meanwhile, meaning returning to cover and allowing your health to regenerate becomes the order of the day. It all feels a little unsophisticated and is perhaps a small sign of the game's older roots, but in all fairness, there are a few shooting mechanics that will help you stem the tide. First up is the concentration mechanic, displayed by the on-screen 6-shooter graphic, and when this is full, pressing R will slow everything down, basically enabling bullet time and gives you a chance to take out a number of enemies before they can respond. You can use it before it's full, albeit for a briefer period as you'd expect, and pressing R again will deactivate it. As with most aspects in the game, this skill can be leveled up as you progress, with one of the last skills you'll unlock in that long-range tree enabling you to tag multiple enemies, release the trigger, and take them down with headshots in an instant. As well as that skill, you have something known as the sense of death. As you play, the skull icon will fill up, and once full, it will grant you a chance to evade death if you are about to be killed. It will activate automatically, slowing everything down as the potentially fatal bullet flies towards you, and you must move the right stick in the correct direction to dodge the bullet. Fail and you'll be killed. Due to the nature of the different weapons, sometimes it can feel like you get a headshot from a distance, but it won't land on its target. However, as you level up your aiming skill, you'll find that all those headshots land. But earlier in the game, when they don't seem to, it can feel a little annoying at times, especially when you take damage from enemies that you're sure should be dead. But the action is so frenetic that you won't have much time to ponder it before the next one is coming at you. My overall takeaway from the gameplay is that it's a fun shooting experience, but it is a touch repetitive and lacking in some of the more basic controls we're used to. Now, having said that, the unlocked system keeps everything interesting, and as Glenn mentioned, being able to customize your character and adapt to the playstyle you prefer is a nice touch. The final gameplay element are the duels. These standoffs pit you against one enemy. Here you'll be balancing not only the hand above the gun, but also trying to wrestle the control of the camera to lock onto the enemy. A percentage chance will be shown which displays the accuracy your shot will have when you eventually take it. And when the enemy's finger twitches towards their gun, it's then that you can press the ZR button and try and beat them to the punch. If you go early, then it's a dishonorable kill. If you go too late, you're gonna die, but if you balance it just right, you can get those perfect headshots. There is also the chance to not kill your enemy in this mode and dodge all the bullets, but that comes a little later. Glenn's really covered most of the things and feelings I have about the game. It can often feel like you're just shooting fish in a barrel, where enemies will constantly run towards you unless you push forwards. And the lack of a cover mechanic system is a shame, and it feels almost impossible not to get hit. The respawning health mechanic kind of mitigates any frustration that might cause, but it's just a bit annoying. I like to go untouched shooting from a mile away, and well, you can't do that here. Some of the environments can be used to your advantage, including explosives or dropping huge logs on your enemies' heads, which mixes things up a touch. And although the game's far from free roam, there are times when it gives you multiple avenues as regards approaching your next target, and its most linear sections are also its weakest. The gameplay's good, but it's not outstanding, and overall the customizable controls are excellent. Gameplay for me scores 15 out of 20, while the controls score 16 out of 20. The lack of a cover shoot mechanic being my biggest issue. Visually, Call of Juarez Gunslinger on the Switch looks decent. It's running at 30 frames per second, but there are the occasional dips, such as the rain level where it seems to tank to around about 20 to 25 frames per second until the rain stops and then it goes back to normal again. Frame pacing for the most part is excellent, and I didn't notice a great deal of the jitters, as I like to call them, when playing. The world design and character models fall somewhere between a Borderlands title and a more realistic shooter, which works for the most part. The level of detail has been brought right in though, and you can actually see where the higher resolution assets load in as you move throughout the level. In terms of the shadow quality as well, this takes a touch of a hit on the Switch. While most of these are dynamic with some volumetric lighting, including some lovely god rays, the shadows in later stages just look strange, with some water effects also just not coming out quite right on the Switch. Does any of this affect the gameplay? Well, no, not really. It runs smoothly enough and the shooting's good, but it's worth mentioning. The audio, on the other hand, It's fantastic. The sound and gunshot effects are all excellent, but the narration is where it really stands out. I love the way you'll be in the middle of a gunfight only for the screen to slightly fade to grey and then for the characters to have a small conversation before everything carries on. Oftentimes, the lead will be questioned on the authenticity of the regaling of his tale, and there's a good amount of humour in here which is carried over nicely by the good voice work. Pavel Blasak, who did the music, also does a great job, with everything feeling suitably authentic.
They thought it was haunted with the ghosts of those murdered by the horse soldiers.
You wouldn't be surprised to see Clint Eastwood stroll across the screen at any time. Overall for me, the visuals score 14 out of 20 and the audio scores 18 out of 20. The game's going to set you back £17.99, €19.99 or $19.99, which seems about right. I do think the lack of multiplayer in the title is a shame, and it only took me around about 6 hours to complete the main story. They have included some quality of life features like a new game plus mode, as well as the ability to carry over your skills so that your next playthrough you can become more and more powerful. But how much that's going to add to the experience, I'm not entirely sure. The story is engaging and fun, and I did enjoy the characterization, but if I had to buy one shooter on Switch, you're going to have to think long and hard whether this is the one or Bulletstorm, as they both offer excellent shooting experiences. But this certainly has better writing. As it stands, I give value 16 out of 20. That's it for this one. Overall, it's a decent game, a touch repetitive, and the lack of a cover mechanic is a pain in the butt at times, as well as the excellent standoffs kept me interested until the end. Overall, it gets a switch up score of 79%. Big thanks to Glenn, who wrote most of the gameplay section of this one, and to all of you who watch the channel and enjoy the stuff that we put out, and to our patrons who support us every single month. Let us know down in the comments what games you're playing, and as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!